Hi, Tony Heller recently did a video, Rapidly Growing Glacier Ended His Skepticism, and I wanted to validate his Heller's claims regarding this story with enough evidence even skepticism will thaw. Basically, Heller debunks this bozo by the name of, what is his name? Munchow, some professor type. Oh, Andreas Munchow, that's it, I'm sorry. And shows that his whole claim here with regard to what changed his mind regarding global warming made him a true believer is actually complete malarkey. It's baloney. Because what the guy claims to have seen obviously is not what he found at all. Okay, and Tony Heller uses NASA to debunk this bozo's claims. Anyway, to which I add a theory as to why I think this guy has done this whole stunt. Why is he showing up in? Why is this kind of this zero showing up in the Washington Post? Did this? In other words, I think the Washington Post was approached by this guy, and he has nefarious reasons for doing so. He's pulling a scam. So let's take a look. So who is Tony Heller? Well, by his own account, he has a BS in geology from Arizona State University, Master's in electrical engineering at Rice University. Blah, 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 blah. University of New Mexico, he studied geochemistry, blah, blah, blah. Testified in front of Congress in 1972. He's a computer constructor, geothermal research at Los Alamos National Labs, oil shale research at Los Alamos National Labs, thermodynamic research into methane hydrates at Los Alamos National Labs, volcano research. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. He sums it up. There are many more projects I haven't listed here. You'll be hard-pressed to find anyone with a broader and more successful career in science, education, environment, and engineering. I use the same skill set and techniques to analyze climate science claims as I've used in science and engineering. And then, your computer game consoles work partly due to my efforts. This is the plaque he said he was given by IBM Motorola. The PowerPC 604 blah 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 microprocessor made functional by Tony Debug God Heller. And he ends with a smackdown. By contrast, climate science. Let me put it in his own intonation. By contrast, climate science doesn't work because it is done largely by dishonest, incompetent hacks who don't follow or even understand any legitimate methodology. And a fun comment. Bet you're not a climate scientist. Oh, wait. Neither is Al Gore, Naomi Oreskes. She's the first one to come up with the 97% of climate scientists are all on board with climate science, or climate global warming, anthropogenic, hallucinatory global warming, I should say. Both the current and former chairman of the IPCC or the entire top administration, Greenpeace or DSMOG blog. As we know anyway, Greenpeace, of course, is constituted primarily of, anti-capitalist commies. Oh yeah, and speaking of former chairman of the IPCC, that's Raman, what's his name? Pachauri. Yeah, Rajendra K. Pachauri. As I recall, isn't he the owner of some kind of construction consortium, and what he was doing was he was trying to weasel in on construction projects in the Himalayas. What he did was he extrapolated from 10 Himalayan glaciers to make the claim that all 54,000 basically were in retreat. They were all melting. And I think, if I remember correctly, he was trying to win these kind of contracts to build, hydro projects, dams up in the Himalayas to save what water was remaining. And so he kind of manufactured this whole crisis. Anyway, the IPCC were forced to apologize for claiming that the Himalayan glaciers would melt by 2035. Okay, so let's get back to the Tony Heller thing.
Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. This video is titled, Rapidly Growing Glacier Ended His Skepticism. At the end of 2016, the Washington Post ran this article. With enough evidence, even skepticism will thaw. Peter Mon.
Okay, here's the article. With enough evidence, even skepticism will thaw. Oh, sounds like the feel-good story of 2012. Anyways, Dateline, Peterman Ice Shelf, Greenland. Beep, 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 beep. Half a decade before he took this trip to the farthest reaches of the north, Andreas Munching had his doubts about whether warming temperatures were causing one of the world's great platforms of ice to melt and fall apart. He even stood before Congress in 2010 and balked on whether climate change might have caused a mammoth chunk of ice 4 times the size of Manhattan to break off from this floating 300 square mile shelf. The University of Delaware oceanographer said he wasn't sure. He needed more evidence. But then the Peterman Ice Shelf lost another 2 Manhattans of ice in 2012, and Munchow decided to see for himself, launching a project to study the ice shelf intensively. Anyway, here's a picture of what the kind of the situation is like. It's kind of this kind of sexy scenario with a bright red helicopter and some cool sciencey looking stuff. But actually, a job like this is like life and death or death and life. It's just absolute hell. I mean, even if you're one of these kind of apple polishing nerds who doesn't know what to do with themselves outside of sticking their nose into a book, and that's kind of like me actually. But speaking of hypocrisy, that's me too. But a job like this is absolutely miserable. It just totally sucks. Every day doing the same thing. This barren landscape. There's no restaurants. There's no feminine companionship except for whatever local talent is part of the team. I mean, good lord, this is just awful stuff. Anyway, maybe because he craves some excitement or something. Anyway, so this dude, what's his name, Andreas Muncho, came up with this story whereby he saw, and the scales fell from his eyes. And since 2012, he's realized that this glacier is in just massive retreat. It's just sprinting back, and it's gonna. Here we go. The Petermann Ice Shelf serves as a plug of source to one of Greenland's largest glaciers. In other words, in this case, which is deeper than the Grand Canyon. In other words, if the forward part of the glacier melts, then it's kind of like a log jam, and all the glacial ice behind it is just going to come slamming down, and it's going to raise oceans globally by nearly a foot someday. The question for Muncho is no longer whether Petermann is changing. It's how fast it could give up still more ice to the seas. Well, let's take a look. Unfortunately, it looks like, fortunately, it looks like we've had some help. Okay, we go to the Wikipedia page on Petermann Glacier, and we see various pictures, blah, blah, blah. Well, here, it's this thing here. I really should show you the other one first. It's the top of Greenland is up here, yada yada place. God's White Acre. The glacier itself is this piece here, and this is the Manhattan-sized piece of ice that separated off. Now, as you can see, you got these kind of feeder glaciers here and here and here and all the rest of it. There's not much over here because there's one here. There's a couple of small bits of ice here, basically. Most feeder stuff is back here. So in a sense, if you think about it, it makes sense for the ice to break off of this section here anyway. That doesn't seem surprising. And for dramatic effect, we have this caption here. Astronauts on the International Space Station used a digital camera. A digital camera. Ooh. To capture this view of Petermann Ice Island. A. Fragment 2. Ooh, that's science. Off of the northeast coast of Newfoundland. Anyway, and here we have a more kind of less excited version of the same thing, ice calving from Petermann Glacier in 2012. Sorry, I should highlight that for you. Yeah, I got so carried away with this malarkey here that I didn't... yeah, there you go. Ooh. And a picture of the crime underway. Oh, well, not much of it. That didn't help much. Anyway, that's the crime against humanity which occurred. It's our fault. I did it. Jeez Louise. Okay, so far so bad. But check this out. Recent developments. And somebody wrote in, the Petermann Glacier. I don't know who must have written this. The Petermann Glacier has grown several kilometers in length since 2012. The development here can be seen on NASA satellite imagery. But I have no idea who really wrote this. It might have been Tony Heller. I suspect it was. If so, good for you, Tony. Maybe, I don't know. But let's check it out. Anyway, so you click on the doodah there, and guess what happens? Shazam! There she blows. Okay, let's move the glacier into center field here. Now, check this out. Look at this line. Who put that line in there? I wonder who did that. Anyway, I'm just speculating. I don't know if it was Tony or not. I hope so. If it was, again, good for you. Okay, so this is 2017. Let's go up to the present date. 2018. Let's go 2019. Come on, baby. Come on. Oops, that ain't gonna work. Let's try the next one. Okay, there we go. Now, if you look carefully, you can see see the outline? Because there's some cloud, there's some kind of just kind of sea ice, that kind of thing. And the outline is up here. There. Okay, so let's take this back to 2012, which is when Munching, whatever else, went out there to to check out what was going on. Just to remind you. But then the Petermann Ice Shelf lost another 2 Manhattans of ice in 2012, and Muncho decided to see for himself, launching a project to study the ice shelf intensively. Okay, back to the ice shelf. Here we are in 2012. Okay, July 4th. Check out what happens by August 4th. Oops. Try a little bit more. Kaboom! There we are. That's the Manhattan-sized piece of ice that which broke off. Where did it break off? Pretty much just behind this area here, this main feeder. There's another feeder up here, a smaller one, but it broke off right here. Okay, you probably can't see it. I'm looking at this, I'm on a 4K TV here on the screen, so I can see this. But somebody, maybe Tony Heller, has put a line in. I'm pointing with my finger like an idiot. Use the mouse here. There's a line like a schematic mark. You can see the black border on this if you can. If you've got a reasonably high resolution screen, there's black border on this. So somebody's put in there. Okay, so that's where that was the what do you call it, the peak minimum, so to speak. Okay, let's look at 2013. You can see the black border now, right? You see that the ice has grown a little bit, right? Okay. Now it's 2014. 1 year later, the ice has grown even more. 2015, the ice has grown again, even more. 2016, at the time of this story, the ice has grown even more. The ice has been growing for 4 consecutive years. So this guy's belly aching about the ice in retreat when it's actually been growing 4 years consistently. So he's got a real problem. In other words, you begin to wonder, did he come up with a story in part because he's bored? You know, he also wants attention. At the same time, he wants to kind of put out a camouflage story. In other words, he needs somehow to mask the fact that his statistics are showing that the ice is growing, not retreating, which goes against the whole kind of global warming hypothesis, the predictions, right? If you think about it, it's kind of like, and when I mean camouflage, it's kind of like we're all familiar with the left, so-called projecting what they do on everybody else. In other words, they'll call somebody else racist, but that's really because they're being racist. You saw this with the beating of Andy Ngo, for example, his gay Vietnamese immigrant, and his white dudes that are beating the crap out of him, calling him a racist, right? So any more ridiculous than that? Or on the other side of the aisle, you think back in the 1980s when I was going to college, it seemed inevitable you'd have like some really loudmouth pastors going off at the mouth, the loudest of them all, be fuming about the gay community, and then within 3 months they'd be caught with somebody sucking on the wrong end of the urinary tract. It just seemed to be a camouflage. In other words, it was a way of kind of pushing back on rumors that you were doing something nefarious with dudes, and so what you become the loudest, shoutiest person in the room when it came to being anti-gay. But in fact, you actually were gay, and that was, again, camouflage. So maybe it's just I have no evidence for this, other it's just pure speculation. But maybe because this guy went out there, he basically hornswoggled these morons into paying for this project which he's working on, and then his project unfortunately is proving to be developing evidence which completely goes against this hypothesis. In other words, his project is probably going to be canceled. It's going to be doomed. So maybe coming up with this as sort of a PR thing, as a way to kind of get the word out, so that people will not want whoever's in charge of the money flow of the gravy train will not stop it, because they'll say, yeah, he's a positive force for the global warming malarkey. Anyway, this is 2017. As you can see, he's still in serious trouble as he refuses to shrink. In 2018, it's growing even bigger. Anyway, if you see this little bit of cloud cover, the end of June is just covered in cloud. But anyway, as you can see again, it's just not contracting. The ice cover is still major. So this guy has a serious problem on his hands, basically, because he went out to prove that it's going to be shrinking, and of course it's not. Anyway, the point of this video was basically to demonstrate that what Tony Heller says in his own video of July 1st, 2019 is apparently accurate. It seems to be validated by what I found. Here's Tony Heller himself.
Way up in northwest Greenland. And this image shows the ice edge at the end of summer in 2012, when Munchausen started his research. So based on the Washington Post article, it would be safe to assume that the ice edge has retreated since 2012. But the exact opposite has happened. The glacier has grown about 1 kilometer per year since 2012, and now extends about 6 or 7 kilometers further than it did at the end of summer in 2012. I'm going to loop through this animation a few times so you can see the growth year over year. It's 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and now.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I'll wrap it up with that then, folks. Hope I showed you something useful. Seems to me that Tony Heller, this is the second time I've tried to validate what he was getting into, what he was claiming, and it worked out yet again that he's telling the truth as far as I can tell. So there you go. All right, gentlemen and ladies, have a good one. Bye-bye.